Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, aka the Football History Dude, and I'm here to tell you about an awesome way for you to rub elbows with your favorite podcast hosts here on the Sports History Network, while at the same time rooting for your hometown team this upcoming NFL season. You've been hearing all about our partner, Tailgate Fantasy, the past few weeks. Well, dig on this. Tailgate created a special Sports History Network league for our listeners, so we can put the word fan back into fantasy football together. It's free to join, and if you do so before the season kicks off, you'll automatically be entered into a drawing for a free t-shirt from one of our other partners, Home Field Apparel. It's a win-win-win! So hurry up today and head to sportshistorynetwork.com/tailgate for all the details. Again, that's sportshistorynetwork.com/tailgate.
And we'd like to welcome everybody back to another episode of Football's Family. And I got a special guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Travis Creasy. I am a former head football coach at Riverside Christian Academy, still campus minister. I preach there for the church that meets in the cafeteria. And, man, I just love me some football. And so I know I'm in the right place as far as talking about that. And I guess it's almost 5-year cancer leukemia survivor. And man, I do all kinds of stuff, just like the host here, always busy doing a bunch of things. I'm sure I've got a football podcast. I've got a mental health podcast. I've got a lot of things going on, but a lot of fun being had. But man, I appreciate you inviting me on.
Oh, no problem. No problem. And I think if I remember correctly, Travis, of course, I'm old, and judging by your beard, you got about the same problem I do.
There you go.
We went to Freed-Hardeman together, if I remember correctly.
Yes, I believe so.
That's been many a moon ago, and Freed-Hardeman has the distinction of being undefeated in football since 1869.
Yes, a great record.
It's a great record, absolutely. How did you get to be a head football coach at a Christian academy?
Well, when I first left Freed, I moved to a place called Albertville, and the head coach went to church with us, and I was a youth minister there, and he asked me to come be the minister on the football team and coach running backs at Douglas High School. And so after I was done in Albertville, I moved to Florence for a year. He moved to Fayetteville, Tennessee, Chris Jones, and he brought me up here, wanted me to help coach football. And so I started off wide receivers, made it to offensive coordinator, and then I was the head football coach. And we play 8-man now. It was 11-man when I first started. And then I've coached, I'm not even real sure, I guess 2013 to 2020 head coach. And but I've been at Riverside since 2007. And I coached football every year until 2020 was my last year. We went 4-4 that year and won our division in the conference and got us a championship. And I went off into the sunset. And now I just do the radio, which I just got through doing middle school football. We won, so that's good.
Yeah, he messaged me and said it might be a little late. I'm like, I only work 4 hours a week, so it's all good. This late stuff, it's all good. But the big thing is, I noticed from your Facebook account, and I noticed from behind you, your passion isn't with middle school or high school as much.
Oh yeah, college football is my jam. Now, I will say I have fallen in love the last few years with the NFL game, because I have teams that I root for, right? I want to do well. I'm the Titans. I'm there with them. But I don't have as much anxiety about the NFL. Like, I want certain teams to win, but if they don't, it doesn't impact the rest of my weekend like it probably shouldn't anyways. But
Sunday impacted me in some bad ways. It hurt really bad. I mean, Travis, when you have a guy, Derrick Henry, by halftime had 107 yards of total offense. He went nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of the game, they don't give him the ball.
Yeah. He suffered from that in a lot of places. I think there were times at Alabama, 13 is one of them. With A.J. McCarron's last year, we're gashing Oklahoma. He's a freshman. We're gashing him like 8 yards a carry. Every time Derrick touches it, it almost is a first down. And I guess we just had to get A.J. his numbers. And so we lose to an Oklahoma team that, defense then was optional, for them. And I'm like, feed the beast. But, it is what it is.
And even at 18 as a freshman, he was bigger than everybody else on the
He
field.
was a monster. I remember Nick Saban being mad at him because I think his first touchdown was against Arkansas in like the fourth quarter. And he was mad at Arkansas's defense because they couldn't stop this kid. I mean, he goes around the end and it's like a 70-yard touchdown, and Alabama's trying to run the clock out. And, there's frustration for Nick there. I was thinking he was trying to not run the score up. And, yeah.
He's one of those guys. Derek is one of those guys that he's going to be 30 this year, which is ancient. And I still think he's got another 2 or 3 years. I don't know if it'll be with the Titans. In fact, I think this year will be it for him with the Titans and Ryan Tannehill as well.
Yeah.
I have a feeling he's going to go to the Jets soon. But man, I think he's got a couple more years left in him. Which was funny. I was telling people my best memory of Derrick Henry is I was there when he ran the 99 yards.
Oh man,
I was at that game.
Awesome.
And
History.
It was history. And I remember setting up. We were right behind it, of course, where I'm poor and stingy, so I was sitting up at the top, looking down. And I told my wife, "They're going to run it. Derrick's going to run it, and he's going to go around to the side, and it's be 2 or 3 yards, and then it was 99 yards."
You got part of it right.
Well, I called part of it because I saw where they were lining up, but tell me, what's some of your memories about Alabama?
Well, I think you and I both fall in the category that we can't be called bandwagon fans. We're not in that lot because my earliest memory is shaking Bill Curry's hand at 5 years old. And of course, Bill had some great teams, but there were certain teams between him and the Nick Saban era that weren't that great.
Well, we got Mike Price, Mike DeBow.
The Mike era. So
it was awful. And then you had Don Shula's son. What was his name? Dan or Dave?
No,
Dave.
It was Mike. Mike. Shula.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
All the Mikes. Yeah, it was Mike. But yeah, Ben Hayes, my co-host on a lot of the podcasts, my partner in crime, my first cousin. Alabama's playing well. Guess what? At halftime, we're going to go out and throw the ball. If Bama's not playing well, we just go out before halftime and throw the ball around. So those are if I thought every kid grew up playing tackle football or catching the ball in the backyard. And recently I've discovered that's not how every child grows up. But, my earliest memories are my dad working on the car. And yes, folks, there was a time where every game was not televised. And listening to Eli Gold and running all the plays in the front yard. I knew how they played certain teams. Vandy was always tough. They always played us better than they should have, but Alabama would pull it out. And so, man, I got all kinds of good stuff, and that's before I ever played high school ball. So
I grew up a Vanderbilt fan, so don't hold that against me. But in this area here in Tennessee where I grew up, we didn't have a pro team. Titans were a late addition, and I wasn't a UT Knoxville fan. So the first game I went, but I got a call from a guy one day. He said, "Do you want to watch Alabama play?" It's like, sure. I've never seen Alabama play. So I go. And the stadium is not a big stadium, but there were probably 90% Crimson in that stadium. It was very impressive with how well Alabama travels.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been to Vandy as guests of Vandy. The first year Nick Saban was there, I went. Vandy always reaches out to the coaches. Hey, there's free tickets for coaches, but you got to wear your school stuff or Vandy, and so we weren't going to wear Vandy. But I remember sitting there, and it's Nick's first year. What he win 6-7 games, but I can remember clearly sitting behind with the Vandy players' families, and that's the Alabama sideline. And I think it was Terry Grant didn't get out on to play. He was supposed to be in the play, and I just remember Nick coming down there and just chewing him out. And at that point, Grant was like the stud running back, and Nick's like, "Hey, if you don't get out there when I tell you to get out there, you just won't be out there." And I don't know that he played very much the rest of the game or really the rest of the season. And I remember thinking, man, something's different here. Like that's a whole different level, of coach. And so it was wild. But yeah, my biggest memories are down there in Tuscaloosa wearing the Crimson and different things. I was there when Central Florida upset us. I was in the stadium. I was there when Johnny Manziel pulled his magic. So, to say I have a little anxiety of going to a Alabama game is not even giving it justice. And I thought we were safe. I thought we were safe, right? With the Texas game, I wasn't there, but unfortunately, not so much.
Anxiety is not the right word. I'm not you're much higher college than I am. For me, my problem is Sunday afternoons with the Titans.
Yeah.
But I've got friends here in Tennessee that they live and breathe orange and crimson too, but it's a lot of orange. And when this previous week, Austin Peay nearly took it to them.
Yes.
And they were nervous the entire time. And I laughed at them a little bit. And then Texas beat Alabama, so I quit laughing.
Yeah. Well, it was awful quiet. Usually when we lose, I hear it. I'm in Fayetteville. I don't know if I mentioned that in the opener, Fayetteville, Tennessee. And Alabama last year was the first time Alabama had lost since I moved here. And so I got a lot of grief. And usually I figured I would over Texas, but then I saw the Austin Peay score where they only won by 17. And it was real quiet. I've not heard anything about Texas all week.
I mentioned that at the end of the sermon as I was walking out, and I heard somebody said, "A win's a win." I'm like, you know what? You're right.
It's true.
But this is an OVC team. You should have blown the doors off Tennessee. Yeah. So you're 3-0. I get you. Or what is it? 2-0? 2-0. You're all right. You're all right.
Trip to the swamp.
Yeah. So I'm looking in the back there. That picture of that's a Tennessee pitcher behind you in it where they're blocking a kick.
It is.
I remember that game. I remember it, but I can't place that.
Yeah. Rocky Block, 2009.
I remember that. And then, of course, I'm seeing one over on the corner here. I love look at the man caves, Travis.
Yeah. That's the Clemson. That's Kenyon Drake. He's going to go.
I remember that game. By the way, Kenyon Drake is so underrated. That dude was insane.
Yes. And even injured. Like he came back from injury and was I don't know if he was just as good, but he was good enough. He was fast. He was a fast dude. And as you can tell, I have a lot of memorabilia. I collect autographs. I heard your interview with Bill. I've got a Colts helmet at school signed by Bill Curry. And I guess my biggest collection, I've got an Alabama game worn jersey from the 75th anniversary year. And it is signed by, I guess, the first half era of Nick Saban stars. And then I have a full-size helmet over there that's got some of them, but it's not all just Alabama. I've got Warren Moon, Hall of Fame folks, and it's kind of something I don't have. This is my expensive hobby, I guess. I don't play golf, I don't fish, I don't hunt. And so the little kid in me goes and collects these autographs and stuff. So
there's nothing, it keeps you off the streets.
Yes, sir.
In Fayetteville, you got to get off the streets. It's pretty tough there.
Rough place.
If you don't know Tennessee, there's probably 2 rough places in this whole state.
Yeah.
And the rest of us, we're just glad to be here.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. It is.
Henderson is one of those rough places. I was talking to a friend of ours, or a friend of mine a couple of days ago that I graduated from, and we were talking about that the biggest memory we had is we left our door open all night and a dog wandered into our dorm at Brigance and slept there all night. That was the wildest we went.
That sounds about right.
Well, tell me about your podcast.
Which one? My wife would say, which one?
The door's open.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned, Ben Hayes is my first cousin. He's a mental health professional. I call him the all-pro counselor. So I got to throw a little football in there on the intro. But we originally have the Helping Healing Humor with Ben and Travis, and it is a mental health podcast from a Christian's perspective. Ben's a preacher. I'm a preacher. Like I mentioned, he's a professional counselor. So this week's episode was about suicide prevention. So we kind of handled that. We filled some pretty heavy stuff, and we try to do it, like I said, obviously Christian, but also in a less serious way, right? We're going to be serious about the serious stuff, but we try to add a little fun to it. So it's not all doom and gloom. And of course, we have a tremendous hope in God and all that good stuff. So we share that. That's probably the flagship, if I was going to say. And then Ben does a Friday refresh every other Friday, 3 to 5 minute little motivational podcast. And then during football season, I do a 3 to 5 minute, the good old fashioned dislike podcast where dynasties never die and hate is an extreme word, but just barely. So we do kind of a history of rivalries. I do a little spiel at the beginning about records, when they first played, what trophies they swap. And then me and my buddies come up with reasons why we like one team, hate one team, and by the end of it, we choose who we're cheering for. And that usually has to do with like mascots and colors and famous people from those towns. So it's just really goofy and fun, but it is a little history to it. So, if I can't find anything else to do, I'll come up with something else. But yeah.
It's like if you don't have enough to do.
Yeah.
Keep that up, Travis. Keep that up. I just got off the phone with somebody. Being this month is pretty hard in a lot of ways for my family in particular, and I'm not mentioning names because it doesn't really matter. But she asked me, "Why did your son commit suicide?" And I'm like, "He didn't leave a note. We don't know.
Wow.
We don't know." So most of the problems that you find in life, people will never mention because they don't think they're either good enough to mention it, or society has demeaned men to say you can't mention emotions, and
Yes.
women are too emotional.
Yes.
So yeah, keep that up. More and more people need to hear that.
Well, it's our perspective that God is big enough and to handle our emotions and our anger and being upset with him. In fact, I think the scripture invites us to do that. And so we just try to get people to lean in, like you're saying, there are a lot of these statements and I get it. Like we should all pray more. I mean, I think everybody would say amen. We should pray more, but because everybody should pray more, that's not a great answer to all of mental health and all of issues of life. I know Ben uses this illustration all the time. Like if you break your arm, you should pray about your arm, but you also should see somebody who can help you fix it and set it straight and use the medicine that God has given us to do that. And so our encouragement is, talk to somebody, find somebody, discuss, share your emotion. And I'm thankful. My friends and I have a group text, right? Where, all bets are off. You can say anything, whatever you want. It's a judge-free zone, but it's also an encouraging zone. Like, hey man, I got it. And, through my leukemia, there were dark days where it was like, this is going to be my life forever. I'm never going to get over this, and to have people that you can reach out to, man, is such a big deal. And I told you in the text, I was listening to the Bill Curry episode and you mentioned that about your son. And I was already like leaning in to hear what was to be said. And then you mentioned that and it added another layer. Like we're human beings and everyone listening to this is human beings, and you have value and have purpose. And the fact that somebody feels they're so alone is just something that we think should never be the case. Even if we don't agree, even if you don't believe what we believe, you can still reach out to us, and we would much prefer that than any other alternative.
Oh yeah, and I've made it clear on this particular on Twitter, especially, that they can reach out to me, and I'll listen. I don't judge. I've learned quickly with life that I barely know how to operate my own life, much less somebody else's, but I would listen.
Yes.
Mr. Brothers from Heritage is helping me a lot with that. I guess he'd be Dr. Brothers pretty soon. That's awesome. But with one of the classes I'm taking now, it's really kind of opening my eyes to how to handle things a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
But it has a lot to do with talking and a lot to do with people. You literally want to hear what's going on with people. So yeah, we got to get that out.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, Travis, and I know we're this is a football podcast, but it's also a means to get things out, and that's what it is. My son dies on a Wednesday. His funeral is Saturday. His funeral is Saturday. I get a call after that another young man had committed suicide in Humphreys County, just back to back.
Mm-hmm.
And people a year and a half later are still wondering if they knew each other. And everything. It's like, guys, can you just let it go? Just let it go, that you can think things into the ground, and it won't do you any good.
You know that better than anybody, right?
Yeah, you really can, because if you think about it, well, I should have done this, I should have done that. I was at home. I had a migraine. I was at home, and I think he did it when I was at home, but I was out. I didn't hear the gunshot, and it was my gun. It was my 9mm that I carried, which I don't carry anymore. The sheriff's has it.
Yeah.
You could think things through too hard.
Yes.
It's not going to help
Yes.
anything.
Yes, and I think that's the thing, to have someone to bounce anything off of, right? Anything. Yeah, I would much rather you talk to me and us disagree, but yet walk away and know that you're loved and valued and have a purpose and bring, than to get that news, right? And I've not even experienced it like you have. So to have that, and I've told students before who come to me and they're ashamed of this struggle that they have, and it's always amazing to be able to go, either I've had that struggle, I've had a struggle similar, or I can find you someone that I know who has had that struggle. And one of the lies that we're fed is that you're alone, you're it. No one's ever struggled like this before. And that's one of the greatest lies that's sold. And, when you have a group of people, as I think the church should be, and really any group of people that are there for you, you come to understanding, if we communicate, hey, I'm not alone in this. Like, I struggle, I fail, I mess up. And that's probably most of our podcasts. Like, we've had whole episodes that are ministry fails, where we just talk about where we blew it, where we said the wrong thing, we did the wrong thing, and how it was okay. At the end of the day, things were okay, and we got over it, and we learned from it.
Well, tell me, let's get on for just a few more minutes. Like I told Travis, that I refuse to pay Zoom for more time. I just refuse to do it. Tell me what your high school's looking like this year, football wise.
High school wise, well, we 2020 was actually our last year of varsity football, and so we started it back. And so you can imagine it's been a struggle.
Yeah.
But as I told the new coach and told those players, I said, you take the field and it's a W, right? Getting a team back in general. And I think they've played 2. They had 1 canceled. They've lost both. But the first game, they actually had a lead going into halftime. And, I'm not the coach anymore, so I can say things like this, but it's like, dude, that's a win. Like, the fact that you guys had a lead, you were outnumbered the way you were, is a big deal. And, there's talent. They have it. It's just lack of experience. And, at any level that hurts.
It does hurt.
I'm excited for them. The middle school, a lot of those guys have continued to play. And so they have won 2 games and lost 1. And so there's promise there, and it's exciting. And much of, like you said, I know I keep references Bill Curry, but that's just such an awesome episode. That hits at every level, the playing for the other guy. And when I got sick, and the funny thing is what pushed me over, I was at a Baltimore Ravens, Tennessee Titans game, and went to the bathroom, and there was blood in my urine. And it was like, okay, the man in me is like, nothing's wrong, nothing's wrong, nothing's wrong. You go in the bathroom and it's like, something is wrong. And so I'm hoping to return to Titans Stadium before they move somewhere else, so that I can get that off my checklist of visits, my fears, getting back in that stadium and facing that.
When you go, my friend, message me.
Okay.
And we'll go.
Well, I was really excited because I thought they play the Ravens this year, and they're the home team, but I think they play them in Europe or something. And London. I was like, man, I'm going. And I was like, oh, it's Europe. Never mind. I'm not going.
That's a fur piece from Fayetteville. And that's a fur piece from Hurricane Mills.
Yes.
You have a book out, you and your wife, and I followed you. I'm not really good at the whole messaging on Facebook or anything like that, but I followed you, and you lost a lot of weight with leukemia, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you still had those suit coats that you wear, which were impressive, but you had to wear mask and everything, which is understandable.
Yeah.
You lost your hair, if I remember.
I wore masks before they were cool.
Yes, you wore masks before we were mandated to be cool that way. And so 5 years, how long was your chemo and everything? How long did that take?
So I was in the hospital for 5 weeks, from October the 16th. I was supposed to coach a middle school football game that day, and was going to go home. And they said, you go home for a day. It's the same leukemia that Chuck Pagano had. the same exact kind. So football everywhere, man. Football everywhere. I'm on the right podcast. So anyways, and so they did a biopsy on me, and I bled so much that they were like, "You're not going home. You're going straight to Huntsville Hospital." So I was there for 5 weeks, October 16th to the day before Thanksgiving. And then I took treatments 5 days a week, and total 86 2-hour infusions. I think it's infusions, I can't remember. 86 of those. And then I did oral chemo. So that was through March of 19. And I went into remission of March 19. And I did oral chemo for 3 years after that. And I think it was fall before last was my last.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that.
So yeah, I remember seeing some kid had done like 40, and I came in the room and I said, "Man, this kid is so stinking tough, 40 treatments." And Whitney was like, "How many do you think you've done?" And I counted them up. It was like 86. And I was like, whoa, I was so in the moment. I'm going to get through the next 15 minutes that I didn't really realize how many I'd done. So 86 total infusions and then a lot of oral chemo.
I get a couple of years, it might have been during 2020, I go to the doctor and they said something's not right.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "I'm going to call and make an appointment with somebody." I'm like, "All right, I trust you. I know who you are. I trust you." An oncologist calls me. And you get a call from an oncologist like, "What in the world?"
Yeah.
So I go to this oncologist and they walk you through the building. And you go in the back, and of course, you're scared to death. Of course, again, I'm not so worried about dying anymore. I'm not so worried. Stuff doesn't scare me like it used to. I mean, you see the most scary thing that happened to you is losing a child. I'm not scared about it, but I'm still kind of concerned. I think this was even before Connor died. I was kind of concerned. It's like, and he said, "Oh, you're good." Like, well, why did you drive? Why did you call us back here? I mean, it just put you through this. So
yeah.
I can't imagine 87 treatments, 87 of those, having to go through that same moment, being weak during that whole time and just feeling like you probably wanted to die.
Yeah. I can speak to my kids. The worst day of my life is October 31st of 2018. And I have a strong FOMO, a fear of missing out. And I was sick. This is in the book, but my kids are out trick-or-treating, which I'm so thankful we had members at church who took them trick-or-treating. I'm not speaking against that, but I'm getting pictures of my kids. And I made myself sick on Ensure. And those are those times. So, but yeah, and that's football, right? I mean, playing football in high school made me stubborn. You finish everything you start. Interesting enough, John Mechie had the same leukemia that I had, right? So there's all these football things, but it's just like instilled in me is you do not quit. Your wife, your kids, they're dependent on you. You got a reason to live. And of course the hope that's in Jesus. But I mean, there were times it was overwhelming. It was absolutely overwhelming. I was thankful to work where I work. Whitney was people donated their time. And so Whitney was by my side for most all of it. I think there was a 15-minute window where I sat by myself in the hospital. And in that 15-minute window, all the thoughts come in and all the things. And I'm a sunshine person. So when the sun goes down, I can drive by that hospital in October, or I can drive by it in a rainy day, or if the right smell hits me, I'm back. I'm back in that hospital, and I'm back going through all that stuff. And if I have a nightmare, I wake up and I have bone pain and I'm sweating my guts out, and it's like the body remembers, it keeps score, and it comes back. But so thankful for the church family we had. I'm thankful for my football coaches who instilled in me this never quit. Like, you just do not quit. You finish every drill, and I was no football stud. I'm a small guy now. I was even smaller then. And so it wasn't like I was a star, but I just think about those guys. And we actually played for the championship in 18. Somehow we won enough games to where we made the playoffs and were able to play for the championship. We lost. And so I was committed. I'm going to come back and coach these guys. And I coached through 2020 in the middle of a lot of the treatments. And we had 2 of our best years ever. But football's a big part of that. The book is Reframing Hope. our journey through cancer, adoption, and love. And I should have probably put football in the title because one of my students read it and they're like, why is there so much football in there? And I said, well, because Jesus and football saved my life on several levels.
Adoption, man. If we had more time, we can go into some adoption stories.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of fun at times with adopted kids and what they remember and what they tell you.
Yeah. Oh,
my youngest, we adopted her at a year and a half to 2 years. She was about 2 years old at the time, and it's amazing what they remember.
Yeah, I think we are dealing with some of that now, not with the ability to really express it. And so it kind of comes out in dreams and nighttime with our oldest. But yeah, we were foster parents when I got sick. And so I was in Alabama, which is 30 minutes away, and they were wards of the state of Tennessee. And so we cover in the book, Whitney shares some of her struggles, physical and with that. And, we were faced with, we're going to have to give these kids up. But thankfully, the state of Tennessee worked with us. And, but initially we thought, man, they're going to have to go live somewhere else. So it's the double whammy of you may not live, you may not survive this. And that type of leukemia is a medical emergency. They later told me I was about 3 to 5 days away from no return.
Good night.
And, but if you catch it, it's 90% curable. But man, they hammer you. They check you out. Like, how's your heart? How's your liver? When I tell them I don't drink alcohol, I've never smoked a day in my life, I've never done recreational drugs, and I've only had one sexual partner, they're like, look at me like I have a horn sticking out of my head. And they were like, as odd as that is, we very rarely hear that. But man, you are, and I would say blessed that that's the case, because they literally just bounce. We're going to wear your heart out until it can't take no more. And then we'll take a break, and then we'll hammer something else, and then we'll take a break until it can't take anymore. So, I mean, if I had been habitually doing those things, it would have been a much more difficult road.
All right. Well, again, thank you for coming on.
Absolutely.
The timer's clicking down. Where can we find your book?
You can get all of our stuff at benandtravis.com. It's the hub. You can get all of our podcasts, our mental health blogs. Ben does a great job on those. I've got some on there, but I'm not nearly as helpful as he is. But everything's at benandtravis.com. The book's available at Amazon, and they run deals from time to time where you can get it a little cheaper. If you want it autographed, my wife and I both will autograph it if you order it from benandtravis.com. I think it's /books, but you can go to the store. It's on there. And we'll get that out to you. But it's a great read, especially Whitney's parts. If you can stomach mine and get through it, it's a pretty good read, I hear. Anyways, I've read it enough to where I'm sick of it. There's no greater critic of it than me. But yeah, and a large percentage of that goes to our school, and we also have a foster care / cancer agency here in town that we're on the board for, that a percentage of the proceeds go to that too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you, sir. And I love the podcast. I love hearing all your guests, and hopefully I didn't mess up your run of great interviews.
No, it's the best part about this podcast is, it's football, but I want it as an outlet to help. And this is one of those things.
Well, awesome. You did a great job. I've enjoyed it, and I'm racing through the backlog, right?
No, don't hold the first few against me. I
Hey,
didn't know what I was doing.
right? We're up to like 200 something episodes of the Helping Healing Humor, and I think about some of those first ones, which are about my cancer journey, and that's literally what it was. Like, hey, I got to get this off my chest. We may never record another one, but I've got to get these 2 or 3. People have got to know. And I want to help people. I want people who, I give a lot of them away. If you've got somebody out there that's struggling with cancer and they can't afford a copy, hey, we'll make it happen. So,
well, give me a Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, roll.
And by the way, if you've never heard Eli Gold do play-by-play, you are missing out. Thank you. Thank you, Travis.
Thank you, sir.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I wanted to thank you for stopping by to listen to another episode here on the Sports History Network. Our podcasters are passionate about uncovering and sharing sports stories from yesteryear. And if you didn't know it already, we have over 30 shows across the network covering all sorts of sports history topics. In fact, here's a glimpse into one of our awesome podcasts here on the network.
Join George Bozica, the president of the PFRA, and myself, John Bozica, each month for the Professional Football Researchers Association official podcast. We'll discuss the history of the game, the many names of the game, and so many different things for you, making the history of football not only entertaining, but fun at the same time, as we join you on the Sports History Network on the official PFRA podcast.
How about that? I bet you're super hyped to go listen to that new podcast, right? Well, to learn about this show and all the other podcasts on the network, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com/podcasts. Again, that's sportshistorynetwork.com/podcasts. Head over there today to find your next favorite sports history podcast.